South Korea, North Yorkshire's dense forest and a natural pond in the mountains, and floating in the middle of it, a Buddhist monastery where live a master and his apprentice. You have to go through a big door to enter this monastery, which does not stop anyone's way. And the strange thing is that there is no wall around that door, yet everyone comes and goes through the same door. The story starts from the spring season. Like every day, the master got up first and greeted the Buddha sculpture, and then he awoke his disciple. There is also a door inside the room without any wall. Both get ready and sit on a small boat and go ashore. This boat connects them with the real world. There is a picture of a Buddhist Vaughan on the boat. This boat is a source of going to the outside world. Getting down to the big wooden door, the master and the student went to collect the herbs. After some time, both come back. Then the master teaches him to differentiate between good and toxic herbs from the herbs which are bought. All seem exactly the same. That little student has a pet, a dog with whom he plays all day. One day, student went ashore taking the boat alone, and one by one he ties the little fish, the frog, and the snake with a thread tied to a rock. He enjoys a lot seeing them in pain as it is his new adventure, but his master is seeing him do that. But how did he get there without a boat? On his way back, he takes a large stone with him. The next morning, the same large rock ties upon the child's back, which makes it very painful for him to walk. He asks the master to open it. Then the master said, "Did you think about those living's pain? First of all, you have to free them. And if any of them died, then you will have to take the burden of it in your heart for your whole life." He went back there, but he could only save the frog. Everyone else died before they were released. He cried a lot seeing them dead. For the first time, he felt sad. After spring, now the summer season is shown. The door opens. From being a child, that student is now young. Seeing two snakes intercourse in the forest, desires also arouse in his heart. Then he stands on the top of that Buddha sculpture and sees far away. His viewing circle has enhanced from his childhood to now. A girl of the same age comes to them with her mother for treatment. This time, instead of a dog in their courtyard, a rooster is seen. He sees the girl sleeping at night. The next morning, the master assures the girl's mother that she will get well soon. Her mother leaves her there for a few days. The student begins to be attracted towards her gradually. He would look at her secretly. He had never seen a girl before. One night, while the girl was sleeping, he tried to touch her, so the girl slapped him. Being in panic, he began to apologize to Buddha. Then the girl puts her hand on his shoulder. The master takes out the juice of the herbs brought from the forest and gives it to the girl to drink. Within a few days, the effect began, and the girl began to recover. Slowly, she mingled and started laughing. The master used to watch them from behind as they went for a walk in the forest together. He tried to go towards her. He didn't sleep all night and just kept looking at the girl. The two intermingled very well. One day it was raining heavily. The student could not control and they both got intimate. Both slept together, deceiving the master. One night, both went out far away on the boat sneakily and got intimate on the boat. The next morning, the master sees them both sleeping on the boat together. The master does not react, but he knows that with a desire to get someone, people want their right on them, which becomes a reason for mystery in the future. The master then opens the watering hole in the boat. Gradually, the boat begins to fill with water. Both woke up. The student began to apologize to the master. On this, the master said it's not the fault of either, but both have to stay here. After some time, the master asks the girl, "Is she all right now?" She says yes. Then he asks her to go out from there, but the student lost his temper and started to stop her. The master quickly drops the girl off the boat, even though this strictness is hard for the student now, but that was the only right way to improve him. The student could not sleep all night. Early in the morning, he filled his lap with a Buddha sculpture and left. The master does not stop him even when he has awake because every human being chooses his way himself. Now the big door is showing reopening in the autumn season. The master has grown old now, and this time they have a cat. As usual, the master came back from worship. He says the news on the food paper that a 30-year-old man killed his wife and escaped. Actually, this was that student. At that night, he sews clothes for him, because he knows it's time for him to return. The very next morning, he saw the student standing at the door. Then the master went to receive him from the boat. The apprentice cannot make eye contact with the master. He again put that Buddha sculpture in the same place, and with the knife with which he killed his wife, he strikes the ground again and again. Seeing so much anger in him, the master asks the cause of his suffering. He said, "It was my biggest mistake that I loved her. He did not want anything except her, but she left me and went away with someone else." The master explains to him that one day we have to let that go, which we like. Circumstances and human beings never remain the same. He could not sleep at night, and the next day he tried to end his life. When the master saw that, first he beat him a lot, and then also punished him. After that, the master wrote the whole holy mantra in the courtyard from the cat's tail. When the student completed his punishment and came out wearing the master's sewn clothes, the master asked him to scratch all the written letters out with that same knife. As he will do so, all the pain and anger in his heart will disappear and he will find peace. He was just about to start when 2 policemen arrived at the door. The master picks them up from the boat. He is scared when he sees the police. The master asks the police to wait till the next morning because he will finish this in the morning. The police also allow him to complete the task respecting the practice. The student falls asleep the next morning after he finishes that task. Both the policemen help the master filling the color in those taken off characters. When the student wakes up, all his anger turns into peace, as the master said. When he was about to leave, he greeted his master. Then all 3 sat on the boat, but the boat did not move ahead as someone had stopped the boat. But when the master smiled and waved, the boat began to move. The master knows that he is seeing his student for the last time. As of now, the master has done all his duties. Most of the time, the master sits in a corner and lives life in meditation, and one day he took a samadhi. In yoga, this is regarded as the final stage at which union with the divine is reached at death. Taking samadhi, tears welled up in his eyes, which confirms that he also could not be saved from this world's rules. Maybe he is missing his ex-student. When his body is finished, a floating snake emerges from the bottom of the boat, which shows that a new life cycle has begun. Because in Buddhism, the snake represents the cycle of life and death. The big door is now shown opening in the winter season. The water of the whole lake has turned into ice. The apprentice has returned after serving his sentence. Inside, he saw the same snake sitting in his master's clothes. Going to the boat, the apprentice greets his master. Then he dug the snow in that place and wrapped his master's bones in a red cloth. Then, taking the Buddha sculpture and filling it with the red cloth, he gives homage. He then completes his incomplete learning from the master's old document. He follows his paths. He puts into practice what has been taught by him. The time begins to pass. Then, one day, a lady takes his child to that monastery, but that lady's face is covered with a piece of cloth. Maybe she had any compulsion. She is leaving her child there in the dark of night, and meanwhile, she dies after drowning in that ice spot. The next morning, when the student sees this scene, he feels a heaviness in his heart because he dug that place. To lighten the burden of the heart, he ties a heavy stone around his waist with a rope, and dragging it, he covers a huge climbing, just like his teacher did to him in childhood. Reaching the peak of the mountain, he established a special Buddhist state, which is a symbol of kindness. From there, he can see the whole valley. When he was a child, he could just see the floating monastery, but at every stage of life, his vision broadened. Now he sees things not in pieces, but in whole. At the end of the movie, when that door opened, the spring season has come again. Now a new life cycle has begun. That student is now become the new master, and that lady's child has become his student. This time there is a tortoise in the yard and that little student plays with it. Then, like him, filling the mouth of the fish, frog, and snake with stones, he also enjoys their pain. This is what we have been told, that the path of human is fixed. They repeats the same mistake and hurts others, keeps getting stuck in the trap of greed and illusion which hurts him. This is an endless cycle of life. Friends, the door without walls shows that what we have been taught by our ancestors, we must have to respect all that. In that whole movie, some living things are shown which have their own meanings in Buddhism. And this explains to us every life cycle of the student. It means that when the student is a little child, he was free. Then he grows up a bit, a dog is shown which is obedient as the student was obedient to the master. When he was young, then a chicken is shown which shows man's desires as the student gets lost in his desires. Then there came a cat that remains calm and puts complete focus on one thing, as the student needed peace. And in the last, a tortoise is shown which is a symbol of patience and long age. This shows the last destination of the student life. And in the end, that monastery is a body. The water of the lake is a spiritual mind, and that boat is a medium that connects us to the outside world. And from that door, the feelings, sadness, happiness, greed, and illusion come inside. But how much do we get influenced by it? How to keep yourself on the right track? This is our journey. Here, the movie ends.